I'm back with another video of how I would play a certain deck. My name is Rahul Reddy, and today we're going to be looking at Mega Lucario EX, a deck that you guys are all pretty interested in, and myself as well. Now, I haven't seen a lot of the new cards, or I haven't really had a lot of time to put together what I think the meta is going to look like, but this would be my first draft of a Mega Lucario deck if I was personally going onto the PTCG ladder and starting to play some games. My thought process as a top Pokemon TCG player is I usually head to ladder with a deck that I like or an idea that I like, and I'll just start playing games. And the more games I play, the more adjustments I'll make because that's how you kind of figure out what's going right and wrong. So today we're going to look at my first draft. If you guys like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to do more of this for you so you guys see my thought process behind how I approach a new format and a new tournament cycle. So let's get right into it. This is the deck list here. Please remember, like and subscribe before you guys dip if you get this. But I have a 3-4 Lucario line. Lucario says 340 HP, stage 1 Pokemon fighting type. It is weak to Psychic, so that is a little bit of a bias because you are just weak to Gardevoir and their attackers and Clefairy. But you have Aura Jab as your attack to do 130 and attach 3 basic fighting from your discard pile to your bench Pokemon any way you like. So you can kind of power up your other attackers. There's only one other attacker, but I'll get there. We have Mega Braid that does 270 for 2 fighting, which knocks out pretty much everything in the game, and it can't use Mega Braid the next turn. So you can go to another Mega Lucario and use Mega Braid there, but this is like fine. Then we have a 2-2 Hariyama line. Our Hariyama has Dusokoi Catcher, which when you play this Pokemon from your hand, you basically just evolve it and you gust up a Pokemon of your choice. Really powerful because it's a pseudo gust, but also it has a really good attack. It does 210 damage for 3 fighting and does 72 itself. 210 is just enough damage to knock out things like Fez. Yes, I know we have weakness. A little bit short of knocking out things like Genesect and some of those other auxiliary attackers. Both Clefairy and Mew have resistance, and Mew we can knock out, Clefairy we can't. But then we have the fighting power up later that I'll show you guys. So this is just a good one prize attacker that can offset us before we have to go into a second Lucario and close out the game. So we can go Lucario, Hariyama, Lucario, and kind of just make an aggressive route to kind of close out the game because this Hariyama is really good at doing that. And we can also, pepper in another Hariyama in between if we get lucky enough to keep our Lucario alive because 340 HP is pretty big. Now, I know given that strategy, we probably want to play a little bit more of the Hariyama line, and I have been thinking about maybe putting in more line, but right now there's like an experimental list. So like what I would do in this situation is go on to PTCG ladder and play a couple games, and if I feel like my Hariyama line isn't thick enough, I would cut some of the extra cards that I have put in here. Then we have the Lunatone Soul Rock Engine. Lunatone says once during your turn, if you have Soul Rock in play, discard a basic fighting and draw 3 cards. Pretty broken, especially because we need to put fighting energies in our discard for the Lucario to function. The Lunatone is one of the ways to put that in there. You can only use one Lunacycle per turn, however, so we need to find another way to put those energy in there in our own way. But the Lunacycle ability will let us just cycle some of the energies into the discard pretty consistently and draw 3 full cards. And no one is chasing this Lunatone and Soul Rock down. These are going to be permanent bench sitters because you have other bench sitters that are worth chasing for your opponents. We have the Soul Rock as well, which does have an attack Cosmo Beam 70 that if you don't have a Lunatone doesn't do anything. So I guess it's technically an attack you can use in a certain situation. Let's just say like you're going second and you open Lunatone and Soul Rock for some reason, and Soul Rock's in the active, and your opponent opens a 70 HP basic, which are becoming more and more rare in this mega format because a lot of the megas do have 80 HP. You can just, KO it and be like, haha, I took a prize for free with my Cosmo Beam attack, but that doesn't always happen. So, yeah. Most decks I've seen don't have a Fez and Dippity in them, and I just don't really understand why. I understand the only way we can find this is with our 4 Ultra Balls, but I think having Fez is just such an incredibly good option towards the end game when we're getting Ionoed. Early, I'm not putting this down just to like cycle through my deck because I think it's just a liability in the early game. But towards the very end, when we're looking for a boss or we know we're ahead, we want to put this down, I think. But if we know we're behind, we don't have to put it down. So I like having it as an option because then we can go 3. Like if we're behind or whatever, we're like playing a weird route, we can go 3-1-3. Or in this situation, like if we get ahead, like really far ahead, let's say like 3 or 4 prize cards, we can put a Fez down, and then we can comfortably close out the game with a Lucario and a Hariyama. So it is a little bit of a liability, and I'm not entirely sure I want to keep this card right now on the list, but it is something that I feel like is just wrong not to have in my deck at the beginning. I also have the Psyduck in here with the Damp ability because I feel like the lightning type decks aren't really a worry that knock themselves out with Magneton, but the big things that I'm really scared about is Noir. I think it's one of the few decks that won't go anywhere, and Charizard Dusknoir is also a deck that really won't go anywhere, and both those decks are really scary. Charizard specifically is one of the few decks that we have a pretty good advantage into because we can just chase down their board and be pretty aggressive with it. But it is also one of the few decks that can, and also with 2 fighting powers, we can go 270 plus fighting power, one shot of Charizard. But Charizard is also one of the few decks that can use Dusknoir to get their damage up a lot faster and blow up our board a lot faster. So they can go to a position where they can go like pop a Clops or Dusknoir, take out our like Lunatone or Soul Rock that turn, or a Makuhita so we don't have Gust, or take out a Railu in the same turn, and take out a Mega Lucario given how much damage they've ramped up into, or they can 2-shot this over 2 turns, and we just get put in a really awkward spot. Now, if we hold all of our fighting powers, we can actually bust through 2 um, of the Charizards, which is really impressive if we can pull that off. But obviously, we're going to be looking for bench sitters. We're going to be looking for 2 single prizers somewhere in the way, and then we can take the 2 big knockouts as we please. Um, we're not obviously just only looking for one shots. So that's the Pokemon core. And the rest of the core is 4 Ultra Balls for search, just a generic Ultra Ball searchable card. We need to get the Hariyamos. We need to get a lot of Pokemon in play at some point, and it's just an Arvin searchable card. We have 3 Fighting Gong, get a basic fighting or a basic fighting energy. This way, you get our Rylus, Makuhita, Solrock, Lunatone. We have 10 Pokemon we can search for here, as well as the energies are really important as well. It's basically just a blanket energy search if we need it at any point, because I feel like there's very few times we'll ever need either, we won't need a Pokemon or an energy, and if not, we can just burn the card and call it a day. We have 4 copies of the Premium Power Pro, which is just basically, say that 5 times fast, by the way. This is just a plus 30 damage on that individual turn for your fighting type Pokemon, so you can get your Makuhita over the hump where you need it to be. We can get our Solrock to pump a little bit higher damage, and obviously Mega Lucario can get from 130 to 190, 160, whatever damage increment is good, or the 270 to 330, which knocks out some big things, or we can go even bigger and take out something big, like a big mega or something like a 3 prizer as well. This card is like kind of one of the few cards we don't really exhaust, which is why, like, if you look at my list, I don't have any copies of Professor's Research, which is like a little bit antithetical because every list until now has had research in it for like every deck. But I just feel like we can't discard a lot of our resources, and we have to meaningfully put energies in the discard. So like that's where the Ultra Ball and the Vessel are like the only real ways to discard cards besides the Solrock. So like I don't want to put a lot of these cards in the discard. I need them back in the deck for later in the game. We have 2 copies of Night Stretcher because we do need to recycle attackers probably if they get blown up. We will probably be put in situations where we need to get this energy back that we've been discarding with Solrock all game, and a Stretcher just acts as an energy for an attack at some point. I put 1 copy of Mega Signal in because it is a way to get Arvin Mega Signal into Lucario. That way, Fighting On gets the basic, Fighting Signal gets the stage 1, and then Vessel gets the energy. So it's kind of like, why not put an item search in our deck? I'm not entirely sure if it's good yet, but I did put it in. A copy of Switch and a copy of Balloon. I feel like both are pretty good. The Balloon is good with Arvin being in our engine, so we can move the Lucario. To retreat is a little bit annoying. We can move this with Mega to go into another attacker or go into a different Aura Jab or after we use Mega Brave. And then the Switch is really good because we can reset the attack as well. And Makuhita has 3 retreat. Or sorry, Hariyama has 3 retreat, Makuhita has 2. And these guys both have 1, so they can get stuck somewhere, especially the Makuhita or Hariyama if we use it and we can't move it that turn, like we're not planning on attacking or something, our opponent can CC up the Hariyama and like try to stall for a turn. That's where the Switch comes in to play, or like Air Balloon plus Attach also comes into play here. We can retreat and repower up the attack with Aura Jab, which is pretty good. I don't know if I want 2 balloons or 2 Switch, or this is a perfect combination still. I'm just keeping it as it is. I also put a copy of Rock Chestplate in. This card seems really good on paper because we can keep our Lucario alive for pretty much indefinite periods of time as long as our opponent is not Psychic type. There's not a lot of things that can actually do a lot this much damage. So if our Lucario gets 2 attacks off effectively, we can power up pretty much everything we need to power up, and then we can go into the second Lucario, which is unkillable, or the first Lucario is unkillable enough that we can set up the second Lucario, and then we can win the game from there. That's my idea. I mean, I'm not entirely sure if it's good yet, but that's my idea. And we have the cleanup hitter with the Max Belt. I think the Max Belt is a broken card because it just gets us over the hump of those big attackers. Like we talked about, the Charizard matchup could be a little bit tricky. The Goldango matchup seems pretty free. Actually, Goldango and Raging Bolt are both 2 decks that are going to try to like aggressive us down, which is where the Hariyama comes in as an attacker. So we can Max Belt Hariyama one shot as well on this Goldango, this Raging Bolt. We have the fighting power up. We have all these like tools to deal with these matchups. And the really interesting thing is that I think Max Belt just helps us with all of our numbers so efficiently. I know we have the fighting premium powers, but this is just like one of those that I think is like the ace spec of choice. If not, I think it's probably Trolley. I thought about it a lot, and I think Trolley's pretty good. Not even Prime. I think Trolley just get all the board out. Trolley, or I mean, I guess Prime is like a close third. I wouldn't play Secret Box, I don't think, but that's about it. We have 4 Lily's Determination because the card's just broken. Getting to 8 on our first shuffle is insanely broken. And then we have the Iono as well to shuffle and disrupt our opponent. I didn't really want a full grip before. I don't even know if I want 3. Maybe 2 is completely fine. But I felt like this is a good number just because I don't really want to be using Iono early. I want to be using Lily's Determination. And then mid game, or like after like my first knockout, these are both pretty interchangeable. Like I'm getting 6 here. I'm probably getting 5 or 4 here. But also I need the disruption when I need it is the big thing because we can't decide when we're drawing our cards. So having the Iono on the turn we absolutely need it is the most important reason I want at least 3. Because most parts of the game I'm probably going to discard it. Arvin's pretty good too because it searches for pretty much everything here. We can get the basics with the Gong, we can get the energy with the Vessel, we can get the Ultra Ball for the Fez, we can get the yeah, and then we have 3 really good tools. That's kind of why I wanted the Rock Chestplate in here too. It might just become a second balloon. But right now I feel like just having 3 tool options is kind of cool. With 2 copies of Boss's Orders, just we already have the Hariyama, but also like a reliable way to do it once our Hariyamas are evolved for Makuhitas. one copy of Turo as well because we can just pick up a Hariyama and move it much easier. We can move a Fez, we can move whatever we need to move. We can pick up a damaged Lucario, put a new Lucario down, and just attack because the attack is only one energy. Pretty broken. Two copies of Artisan because I think we need to bump things like jamming tower and stuff like that. I think Artisan also like being in permanent cycle gets us everything we need every single turn, which is way too broken not to have. I think, and I think having a stadium in this format is quite good. And then I have 9 copies of fighting, which I feel like is more than enough. I've seen lists that go all the way as low as like 7 and as high as like 15, not 15, 12. Sorry, and so I don't really know what the right number is, but I feel like 9 is really good because it just kind of doesn't suck if we prize 2. Like that's my logic. If we prize 2 energy, 7 energy is more than enough to play the game. Um, and that's kind of how I feel about it. This is my preliminary list. Obviously, like I said, I go on PTCG Live and I just play a lot of games on new set day or new set release. So like preparing for Milwaukee, that's exactly what I'll be doing, and I'm gonna be like refining my process as I go. So this is not necessarily something that's set in stone. Ironic, fighting types, but this is kind of where my head is at to start, and I hope you guys appreciate that and enjoy the video. So if you guys enjoy it, like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Please let me know in the comments if you want me to keep doing this. I don't entirely know if I want to be doing this a lot, but I think it's a lot of fun to do with newer decks. With just my thought process on them before that. And I can also do like decks that currently exist as well. So yeah. All right, peace.